Ghost Rider says, X, what's your opinion on masks being compulsory in the UK from Friday? Ooh, getting topical now. Getting topical. I really hope it doesn't become politicized and it becomes a medical thing that people get on board with and like, right, we can make a difference by wearing these masks. Now, I'm aware that some of you out there might think that the masks are bad. It's very difficult to know what to say because some of the anti-mask arguments are clearly straight up BS, right? People saying that masks stop you breathing or, you know, they'll poison you and all this sort of stuff, right? Okay, we've had masks for a long time. Doctors have been doing surgery with these masks for a long time. Where are all these people complaining about it then? You know, where was the Dr. Genocide cover-up? There wasn't one, but now somehow it's political and people come up with these crazy arguments. I'm cool with someone not wanting to wear a mask if they can at least articulate why and be honest about it. If you can be honest about it, that's a great step in understanding each other a little better. But the bold-faced lying, it's ugly. And I hope over here in the UK it doesn't become politicized like it has been elsewhere. That, I think, would be a big problem. And unfortunately, okay, me shielding myself from not diving too much into news and people's opinions and discussion that I find can drag you down a little bit. You know, it drains on my mental energy. I skimmed over, let's say, I didn't skim it, but I kind of watched this video that was a bit skimp on the topic of people in the UK protesting the use of masks and talking about their opinions on it. And these opinions weren't very well articulated, but not trying to be too dismissive. A lot of talking about people doing their own research to figure things out. That's kind of worrying to me, okay? Just because you can do research doesn't make you an expert in doing research. I'd hold up my hand and say, hey, if I wanted to say something like masks are safe, how would I go about fully verifying that? I'd probably struggle, you know? I'd probably have to spend a lot of time reading news sources and trying to find something that looks credible. There's people out there that are trained into how to do research, that know the ins and outs of it, on how you put together ideas, get things peer-reviewed, etc. I'm not one of those people, but when you hear someone else talking about doing their own research and it doesn't sound quite right, that's kind of what happened. I was listening to this woman's reasoning and thinking, you're using a lot of kind of like casting doubt as a reason to doubt, you know? I think if you're going to cast doubt, there needs to be something solid to go along with it. Anyway, really wasn't too convinced, but at the same time, didn't want to get dragged into it, so I watched it for a couple of minutes, you know? So when it comes to the anti-masking stuff, I've only really seen the worst arguments for it, because that's the kind of stuff that the places I look at, like Reddit, for a little bit of mild entertainment sitting on the toilet, you know, I see people sharing that stuff. I'm also aware that, like, they're sharing the worst of someone else's position. So, you know, perhaps if anyone in chat wants to share their position, if you are, you know, let's listen, let's be respectful, because, like I said, just seeing the worst of it, right? I'm very fearful people who can't afford masks will be frozen out of society. That's interesting. Okay, that's an interesting point. But let's face it, masks are, well, let's face it, that's not the right way to start this point. Masks are pretty darn cheap. So we're talking about the most vulnerable people, i.e. homeless. Hopefully, wherever it is someone can say, I haven't got a mask, but I'm homeless, hopefully other people will listen to that and, you know, give them a pass, help them in whatever way they can, etc. That's right. Like, something like that can affect our most vulnerable people in society. And, you know, if that's a reason why we shouldn't wear masks, it's a reason why we should perhaps focus our efforts on, you know, homelessness more. But, like, I don't think that's an argument against wearing a mask, right? The more of us wear masks, the idea is the less transmission there is. So that's obviously something we want to achieve, I believe. They should be strongly encouraged but not forced. I can understand when people get upset about being forced to do something, but, like, all I've seen of people who, want to defend their right, freedom, not to be forced to wear it, are also at the same time not wearing them, which I can get it if you're not going to wear it to sort of mark your point. You shouldn't tell me to wear it, but like, I can totally get. I just naturally have more respect for someone saying we shouldn't be forced to. Like, this is wrong, whilst also wearing a mask, right? Because it's a medical issue. I mean, it's one of those weird things. I think if you think, oh, the government shouldn't have the freedom to tell me to wear the mask, you therefore want to not wear a mask to say you can't tell me. But we kind of need you to wear a mask. Like, that's like, hey, we're in this situation. Like, it would be weird, wouldn't it, to go around shouting we shouldn't be forced to wear masks while wearing one. But if I felt that way, I would do that. I'd be like, if I felt really strongly about not being forced to wear a mask, I'd still choose to wear one. So it's kind of weird how it works like that, right? Like, if you see the idea of being forced as a problem, shouldn't you also be able to see that it's a good thing to wear from a medical perspective? It's just like that. It's weird, isn't it? My dad doesn't believe in masks. He says the virus is 4 times smaller than the holes in the mask material, says Muffin Boffin. I've seen lots of information floating around about how the masks work and the size of the particles of the virus and all this. And I believe that is partially true, that it is smaller, but the way in which the masks work means it actually catches it. This is the problem with information to these days. It always gets weaponized and simplified. And just going off of what I've saw about it, again, I get my information on this particular sort of stuff from science communicators on YouTube. Tends to be the place where I pick up this information. And the video I saw explaining the masks was kind of talking you through all the different elements like that, like the size of the virus, the size of the holes in the mask, and how they have this special material that catches different sizes of particles. In fact, I think if I remember it correctly, they were talking about how it's middle-sized particles that they're not effective on, but big and small they catch due to all this clever, cleverness, I guess you could call it, if you wanted to, cleverness that they use to put the mask together. But out there on the internet, information gets weaponized. One little bit that supports your stance gets blown up. Oh, look, the particles are too small, and it's not the whole science. The whole science usually tends to be rather complicated. In the case of the masks, I think it's the N95, the thing I saw was talking about. It's a case of like a lot of complex engineering has gone into it. Oxygen is 1,600 times smaller than the virus. The virus is transmitted on water droplets from your breath. I have severe asthma and I still wear a mask with no problem, says Explosives Waffle Iron. I hear you, buddy. I hear you. Again, this is why the whole masks suffocate you thing is really frustrating. It's blatant lying. Come on. Like, if you want to be anti-mask, let's do it with a proper argument. Let's do it with something reasonable. I'll listen to something reasonable. Like, I can respect people that don't want the government to tell them to wear it. I'm also disappointed that at the same time they don't see the medical reason to wear it and to join in on the caring for one another. Alan Race is here with Cheers and Bits saying, I don't like the mask because of the past trauma, but I still wear one. Wear a mask. Alan Race, thank you for your Cheers and Bits. I don't know what your trauma is, but again, if someone has like a personal objection along those lines, hey, I went through something and like this is difficult for me to wear masks, that's totally acceptable, in my opinion. Like, we need people to wear masks to slow the transmission, right? Or to stop it entirely. The more people that participate, the better. There's going to be some edge cases like that where someone genuinely can't wear a mask, and that's not a problem. Like, because if the majority of us pitch in and do this, it'll make the difference. It'll make the difference. It's frustrating when people who are fully capable of wearing a mask choose not to. And I can understand the ideas of not wanting the government to tell you what to do. But like I said, I keep seeing the worst of those arguments, the sort of lying through the teeth, they stop you from breathing sort of thing, right? I think some people like tend to go along with whatever fits their narrative sometimes, maybe not really thinking through what it is they're saying, right? What about all those doctors out there every day working with masks? How come they've never been out and about talking about how masks are killing them, right? Harry says, you give the government an inch and they take a mile. Masks are right, but the government is not Big Brother and should educate rather than dictate. Well, It makes sense, but isn't there a situation happening right now, and it is related to the situation? I mean, I'm sure you've heard people making the argument about wearing car seatbelts becoming mandatory at one point in time. Like, there already exists a whole bunch of rules and laws around what you can and can't do in society. So when people talk about having freedom, it's like, well, a particular shade of freedom, because there are already things that you will get thrown in jail for. There are laws and things we have already agreed on. So pure freedom isn't like really there, is it? Okay, Zach says one argument is that masks prevent you from being exposed to bacteria to improve your immune system. I'm not an expert, but smaller doses of disease and good bacteria help our immune system better itself. Yeah, so there's a nugget of truth that's sort of been turned to be anti-mask. If some of you have been watching for a long time, you'll know that I don't wash my hands a lot. Personal hygiene, I shower frequently, shower every day. I take care of myself, but things like washing your hands, I don't do it frequently. I actually have a medical reason not to, but for the most part, it's choice. Choice being that exposure to germs strengthens your immune system. And I find that if you're overly clean and fussy all the time, like your body's not getting exposed to those little germs that it learns to deal with. That's a bit anecdotal because I'm talking about my own experience. It is based on things I've heard people with experience and knowledge say to be so. But in this case, I think it's been a bit twisted because, yeah, you're probably lowering the amount of stuff coming in, but it will come in for other places, the muck that you get on your hands, etc. And like the point is, it's not going to kill you. You're not going to wear a mask and all of a sudden your immune system's going to fall apart. It's just going to mean a little less comes through or whatever, right? And we should be making that sacrifice to solve this current situation, right? You sound like Dwight Schrute from The Office. Bears, beats, Battlestar Galactica. No, I don't.